My parents claimed they were buried in bills and needed $5,000 fast. So I wired it. 2 days later, I caught them posting cocktails and beach photos from a Caribbean resort. I didn't say a thing until they came back asking for more. Can you imagine pouring your heart and soul and your hard-earned money into people you love, only for them to treat you like a personal ATM they can just shake down whenever they need a quick fix? Because that's exactly what my family did to me, piece by agonizing piece, until something inside me finally broke. And the crazy part? I saw it coming, felt it creeping up, but I still desperately want to believe they'd be better. They could be better. My name is Aaron. I'm 29, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the responsible one. Not the genius, not the lottery winner, not the real estate mogul. Nope, just a guy who quietly figured out how to save, budget, and live within his means. I work in cybersecurity for a mid-sized tech company, and between the long hours and my freelance gigs, I've managed to build a decent life. Nothing flashy, no fancy cars or penthouse apartments. Just a modest 2-bedroom house in a quiet suburb, a solid emergency fund, and honestly, a lot of peace of mind. My parents always prided themselves on being old school, hardworking, full of pride. They ran a small hardware store for most of my childhood. You know the type, flickering fluorescent lights, a tiny radio always playing 80s rock. Mom worked the register, Dad stocked shelves, and my younger brother, Brandon, and I would do our homework in the back. They worked, absolutely, but money was always tight. There was this constant, low hum of stress. Anytime I asked for new shoes, a birthday party, a school trip, the answer was always the same, delivered with a sigh. We're not the Rockefellers, Aaron. As we got older, things changed. A Home Depot opened nearby, and their store just faded. Dad tried contractor work, but his back gave out. Mom bounced between cashier jobs. And Brandon? Well, Brandon was a drifter. He always had a new scheme, a fresh hustle, the next big thing that was definitely going to make him rich. Crypto, drop shipping, Amazon FBA, selling supplements online. He tried them all, and none of them stuck. But he had this uncanny ability to make everyone feel sorry for him when his latest venture inevitably imploded, especially our parents. They fell for it every time. I remember one Christmas, maybe 4 years ago. Brandon showed up late, no gifts, looking completely strung out. My mom immediately hovered over him like a wounded bird. "He's going through a hard time," she whispered to me, as if that explained everything. I offered to let him crash at my place for a few weeks. A few weeks turned into 5 months. He never paid a dime of rent, left his dishes caked in the sink, burned a hole in my couch with a vape pen. When I finally asked him to leave, my mom called me cold, like I just kicked a puppy out into the street. Look, I'm not saying I'm a saint here. I've made my share of mistakes. I've probably been too generous sometimes, too quiet when I should have spoken up. But I always believe that's what family does. You help when you can. You step back when you need to. I just never realized how completely one-sided that philosophy was going to be. The real shift, the thing that set everything in motion, happened in June. I'd just gotten back from a work trip to Seattle, sitting on my porch, enjoying a quiet cup of tea when my mom called. She rarely calls, usually just texts call me and waits. So when her name flashed on my screen, a knot tightened in my stomach. I answered immediately. "Hey, Mom, everything okay?" There was a shaky breath on the other end. "Aaron," she began, her voice trembling. "Your dad and I are in a bit of a situation." My stomach dropped further. "What kind of situation?" "Bills," she said, the word heavy with dread. "We're behind on the electric, the car payment, the mortgage. It's been piling up. Your dad's trying to pick up more shifts, but his back. He can barely get out of bed some mornings." That image hit me like a physical blow. My dad, a man of fierce pride, who'd never asked for help, struggling just to walk. My throat tightened. "I'm so sorry," I said. "Is there anything I can do?" Another pause. "We hate asking, honey. You know we do," she continued, her voice cracking. "But we're about $5,000 short this month, just to get caught up." I wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious. My heart pounded. $5,000. That wasn't chump change, even for me. It was my buffer, my peace of mind, my safety net. But still, I didn't hesitate. "I can send it," I said, the words coming out before I could second-guess myself. "Today." A choked sob of relief. "Oh, sweetheart, thank you. I knew we could count on you. I promise we'll pay you back. We just need to get through this month." I told her not to worry about it. I told myself it was the right thing to do. I went inside, transferred the money, and texted her the confirmation. She didn't call the next day, or the day after that. But on the third day, I opened Instagram while waiting for my morning coffee to brew, and there it was, a picture of Brandon. Sunglasses on, shirtless, a wide, confident grin, cocktail in hand. The caption read, "Island life, baby, palm tree, tropical drink, hashtag Caribbean vibes, hashtag FOMO." I blinked. No, F asterisk 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 ing. Way. I clicked his profile. Post after post from the last 2 days. My mom in a floppy sun hat, sipping something pink. My dad, lounging in a beach chair, cigar in hand. Brandon filming a slow-motion video of a resort pool. Steel drum music playing in the background. My stomach twisted into a cold, hard knot. I double-checked the wire transfer date. June 15th. The first post? June 17th. 2 days after I sent $5,000. They said it was for overdue bills. I just sat there, holding my phone like it might spontaneously combust. I didn't say anything. Not that day. Not the next. I told myself, maybe it's a weird coincidence. Maybe a friend paid for it. Maybe they won a contest. Anything. Anything but the most obvious, gut-wrenching explanation. But as the days went by, the posts kept coming. My mom tagged in a beachside spa. My dad in a video dancing to a reggae band. Brandon bragging about the all-you-can-eat buffet and an executive suite upgrade. And I kept quiet until 3 weeks later, when I got another call. This time it was my dad. "Hey, sport," he said, too casually, like nothing was amiss. "Listen, your mom and I are trying to figure out this tax thing, and we might be in a little hole again. Nothing crazy. Just wondering if you could spot us another $2,000 until August." I didn't answer right away. I could feel my jaw clenching, my teeth grinding. "You okay?" he asked. I took a slow, deep breath, holding it for a second longer. Then I said, "Sure, but can I ask something first?" "Of course. Did you use the last $5,000 for bills or for the Caribbean?" There was a pause. A long, deafening pause. The kind that tells you everything before a single word is even spoken. Then he cleared his throat. "Look, Aaron, we needed a break. Your mom's been under so much stress. The doctor said she had to get her blood pressure down. Brandon found a deal and we figured..." "You figured a resort vacation was more important than paying the mortgage?" I interrupted, my voice flat, devoid of emotion, which somehow made it sound even colder. "Aaron, don't be dramatic," he snapped back, irritation creeping in. "I'm not being dramatic. I'm just trying to understand how I went from helping you keep the lights on to funding your beach trip." That was the moment. The exact second, everything started to shift. I realized this wasn't just about money. It was about respect, about how they saw me, about the fact that for all my sacrifices, all my efforts to be the responsible one, they still saw me as the fallback plan, the guy with the extra money, the one who would always say yes. But not anymore. I didn't explode. I didn't scream. I just ended the call. And that's when I started planning. Not revenge. Not yet. But something was brewing. Something quiet. Something patient. Because I knew sooner or later they'd ask again. And the next time, well, let's just say I wasn't going to be their ATM anymore. But that's not even the craziest part. The truly wild thing came later. Much later, when they came to me for something way bigger than money. And by then, it was already too late. I wish I could tell you that was the last time they ever asked for money. That after that phone call with my dad, they realized they'd crossed a line and maybe, just maybe, felt a little guilty. But no, that would be far too easy. My family doesn't really operate on guilt. They operate on entitlement, cleverly disguised as need, and on expectations that never seem to run out. After I hung up that day, I didn't hear from either of them for nearly 2 weeks. No check-in texts, no half-hearted "how are you?" Nothing. It was like the moment I stopped being immediately useful, I simply disappeared from their radar. To be honest, it didn't surprise me. I'd grown used to the pattern. I was a family safety net. Quiet, dependable, invisible until an emergency arose. Like a fire extinguisher in a glass case, only break in case of, well, you get it. Then, 2 weeks later, Brandon texted me out of nowhere. No context. Just, "Yo, any chance you can help me out with something? Need a loan for like a month?" Nothing crazy. I didn't respond. A day passed, then another, then a follow-up. "Seriously, man, just $1,200. I'll flip it in 2 weeks. Got this sneaker plug that's about to blow up. I'll even throw an interest." Interest? From Brandon? That alone was hilarious. This is a guy who once borrowed my car and returned it with 2 parking tickets and an empty gas tank, then told me, "You should have warned me about that street." I still didn't reply. Not because I was trying to be petty, but because I was done. Or at least, I thought I was. That weekend, I got an invitation to a family barbecue at my parents' house. Nothing fancy. My mom said over the phone. Just burgers, hot dogs, a little music. Be nice to have everyone together again. And even though I had every reason in the world to say no, something in me, maybe habit, maybe a stubborn flicker of hope, said yes. I drove over around 4 p.m., carrying a pasta salad I'd made from scratch. When I walked into the backyard, it hit me like a wall. Laughter, music, the rich smell of grilled meat, the clinking of glasses. My parents were beaming. Brandon, already half a beer deep, was flipping burgers like he was born for it. "Aaron," my mom squealed, rushing over with a tight hug. "You look skinny. Are you eating?" "Hi, Mom," I said, trying to force a smile. She took the salad from my hands. "What is this?" "Oh, honey, you didn't have to bring anything. We got more than enough." I looked around. The table was overflowing. Ribs, wings, shrimp skewers, expensive-looking desserts. I spotted bottles of Grey Goose, a cooler full of imported craft beer. Definitely nothing fancy. Brandon sauntered over, spatula in hand. There he is, the man, the myth, the money tree. He grinned like it was a hilarious inside joke. "What?" I blinked at him. "Kidding, bro, relax," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. "Come grab a drink. We got that IPA you like. You still on that fancy beer kick?" I didn't answer, just nodded, my smile strained. I found a quiet spot at the edge of the yard, sipping a warm soda, while kids ran past me playing tag. Every now and then, someone would ask how work was. I'd answer politely, but mostly I just watched. My dad laughing with Brandon like they were business partners. My mom fussing over Brandon's plate. "Want more ribs, sweetheart?" While mine stayed conspicuously empty. My cousins talking animatedly about Brandon's new business, how he was really turning things around. No one mentioned the $5,000. No one brought up the Caribbean vacation. No one asked how I was. And I just sat there thinking, wow, I don't belong here. Not really. Not in the way I thought. But the real moment, the breaking moment, that came after dinner. Everyone had eaten. The sun was dipping low, painting the sky in fiery oranges and purples. Brandon called for attention, clinking his beer bottle against a fork like he was toasting a wedding. Hey, everyone, quick thing," he announced, his voice booming. "So, some of you already know this, but I wanted to make it official." He pulled out a small black box and turned to his girlfriend, Cassie. I didn't even know he was dating anyone seriously. "Cass, baby," he began, his voice surprisingly tender. "You've been with me through the lowest lows and the highest highs, and I want to build a future with you." My heart stopped. He got down on one knee. Cassie gasped. People around us screamed with delight. Someone dropped their plate with a clatter. "Will you marry me?" She sobbed and nodded, tears streaming down her face. They kissed. Applause erupted. My mom started crying, dabbing her eyes with a napkin. My dad clapped Brandon on the back, beaming like he'd just won the Nobel Prize. And I just sat there, stunned, not because of the proposal itself, but because of what came next. My mom stood up, a giddy smile on her face, and raised her glass. "We're so excited to help them get started," she announced. "And we decided to contribute to their wedding fund. $10,000 to help them build the day of their dreams." More clapping. Cheers. Cassie covered her mouth in disbelief, and I felt like I'd been slapped across the face. $10,000. $10,000. The same parents who told me they couldn't pay their electric bill. The same ones who cried on the phone, begging for $5,000 to keep the house. And now, they were handing Brandon $10,000 for a wedding? It wasn't even about the money anymore. It was about what it meant. It meant I was a wallet, not a son. A silent investor in someone else's spotlight. And Brandon, the golden boy, the failed entrepreneur, the irresponsible failure, was still the favorite. Always had been. Always would be. I stood up slowly and walked inside, needing a break from the suffocating noise. My chest felt tight, my lungs struggling to pull in air. I found myself staring at a framed photo on the hallway wall. Me at my college graduation. My parents weren't at that ceremony, so it was too far, too expensive to travel. I remembered sitting alone in my cap and gown, watching other families cheer, while I took a quick selfie and went home. But they were here now, fully present, wallets open, proud beyond words. I leaned against the kitchen counter, tried to breathe, try and make sense of the dizzying unfairness. That's when I heard the voices. Brandon and my mom, right there in the kitchen, just around the corner. "He doesn't even look happy," Brandon muttered. "You think he's mad?" "He's always been like that," my mom said, her voice dismissive. "Too serious. Honestly, I wish he'd loosen up. He's got a good job, no kids, no mortgage. What does he even need all that money for?" Brandon chuckled. "Exactly. I could flip that 10 grand into 50 if he'd just give it to me. He's too stingy for that. But it's okay. We'll figure it out." I backed away, my ears burning, my vision blurring. Something inside me snapped. Not a loud, violent break, but the quiet, decisive click of a door locking shut. I walked out the front door, without saying goodbye to anyone. No one noticed. No one followed. That was the moment everything truly changed. Because up until then, I'd always clung to this hope that maybe, just maybe, they didn't realize what they were doing. That maybe their favoritism was unconscious. A bad habit they didn't mean to lean into. But hearing them talk about me like that, like I was hoarding money for fun, like I owed them something, that was betrayal. And not just any betrayal. It was a kind that makes you sit down in your car for half an hour, staring at the dashboard, wondering how long you've been utterly blind. I didn't sleep that night. I just kept replaying the scene, the toast, the proposal, the $10,000, my mom's voice in the kitchen. What does he even need all that money for? Like I didn't live alone. Like I didn't bust my back saving. Like I hadn't bailed him out more than once. I woke up the next morning to a text from Brandon. Yo, bro, sorry if we caught you off guard. You good? Wanted to ask you something later this week. Nothing major. Hit me up. I didn't respond. But that something he wanted to ask me, that's what finally pushed everything over the edge. Because a week later, he showed up at my house, uninvited, wearing a fresh new watch and a grin like nothing had happened. And when he told me what he wanted, let's just say that was the very last time he ever walked through my front door. I opened the door just enough to block most of the entry with my body. It was a Saturday morning, gray and humid, and I had been in the middle of cleaning out my kitchen cabinets. Something I did when I needed to feel in control. And there he was, Brandon, hoodie, joggers, gleaming new white sneakers, and that smug little smile that had aged poorly with time. Yo, finally, he said like I owed him my Saturday. Been texting you all week, man. You good? I didn't answer, just raised an eyebrow, letting the silence hang. He held up a to-go coffee tray like it was a peace offering. Brought you a flat white. You still drink these, right? I didn't move. He shifted his weight, laughing awkwardly. Come on, don't make me stand out here like a weirdo. I could have shut the door. I probably should have, but I stepped aside. He walked in like he owned the place, just as he had 5 years ago when he moved in for a week or two and stayed for nearly half a year. This time, he made a beeline for the kitchen and dropped the coffee on the counter without asking. Place looks good, he said, peeking into the living room. Still got that same couch, though? Man, you need an upgrade. I saw the sectional on Facebook Marketplace. Real nice. You should let me hook you up. I stayed quiet, watching him. He finally sat down at the counter, the forced joviality fading slightly, and got to the point. So listen, I've been working on something new, like actually solid, a real plan this time. Cassie's cousin runs this events company, weddings, corporate gigs, that kind of thing, and they're expanding into luxury rentals. Chairs, tables, linens, tents, you name it. High margin stuff, bro. He leaned forward, as if he were about to share the cure for cancer. Anyway, they need a partner for buy-in. 50/50. I knew exactly where this was going. So here's the play. I put in $5,000. You match it with 5. And we're co-owners. Passive income, bro. They already have bookings for the summer. It's a no-brainer. I just stared at him. You just got engaged, I stated, my voice even. Didn't mom and dad give you $10,000 for the wedding? He grinned. Yeah, but Cassie said on this destination thing, Bali or Mexico or whatever. So we're saving that for the venue and flights. This investment is separate. Trust me, I'm thinking long-term now. I said nothing. I'll pay you back in 3 months, he added, a hint of desperation now. With interest. Real interest this time. Like you paid back the car repairs? I asked, my voice still quiet. Or the $2,000 I spotted you in 2019. Or the rent you never paid when you lived here. He laughed, a strained, nervous sound, as if I was bringing up funny inside jokes. Come on, man. That was forever ago. I just looked at him. No anger. No raised voice. Just silence. Brandon's smile finally faltered. What? He asked, a touch of belligerence in his tone. You don't believe in me? I took a slow breath and walked to the sink, turning to face him. I believe in people who show they can follow through, I said, my voice low and steady. Not ones who only show up when they need something. He stood. The smile was gone now, replaced by something sour and angry. Wow. Okay, that's how it is. I didn't answer. He grabbed his untouched coffee from the counter. You know what, man? Forget it. I thought you were family. I let that hang in the air for a moment. Then I said just as quietly, yeah, so did I. He left. No slamming door, no dramatic exit. Just silence. The kind that doesn't come with relief, only crushing clarity. That day marked a profound shift. Not loud, not theatrical, but utterly real. I wasn't going to be their fallback anymore. And that decision didn't come with applause. It came with silence, with loneliness, with second-guessing. Because cutting off family, especially when they don't even realize their problem, feels like amputating a limb while everyone around you tells you you're just being sensitive. The first month after that was rough. The text slowed, then stopped. My mom sent a couple of messages. Are you okay? We miss you. But they weren't followed up. No calls. No visits. It was like I flipped an invisible switch and simply disappeared from their family map. To them, I was gone. At work. I kept my head down, logged hours, fixed problems, ran security drills. On paper, everything was fine. But inside, I felt like I was standing in the middle of the field after a tornado, alone, shaken, and not entirely sure which way was up. It wasn't just a betrayal. It was the loss of something much deeper. A belief I didn't even realize I'd been holding on to so tightly, that someday my parents would finally see me, really see me, not as a wallet, not as a safety net, but as a son worth respecting. That quiet hope had been unconsciously fueling me for years, and now it was gone. I'd hit bottom, not financially, thankfully. I still had my emergency fund, my house, my job, my routines, but emotionally, I was depleted. There were nights I'd come home and just sit on the edge of my bed, fully dressed, staring at the floor, wondering if I'd overreacted, wondering if I should have just said yes, wondering if being the responsible one was really worth it if it meant being so utterly alone. But here's the thing about rock bottom. It's solid. You can build from it. And slowly, painstakingly. That's what I did. Not with some big, inspirational comeback story. No sudden promotions or viral startup success. Just small, steady, deliberate steps. I started going to the gym again. Not for aesthetics, just to feel something shift inside my body. I woke up early, lifted heavy things, and walked out with shaking arms and a much clearer mind. I began cooking real meals, not microwave dinners or takeout. Actual recipes. I found a weird comfort in chopping vegetables and searing meat in a pan. It gave my hands something to do, gave my evenings purpose. I reached out to an old college friend, David, who I hadn't spoken to in years. We met for coffee, and to my surprise, it wasn't awkward at all. We talked for hours. He introduced me to a small hiking group he was part of, and suddenly my weekends had structure, fresh air, laughter, human connection. I started therapy too, quietly. No one knew. Just me and a kind, perceptive woman named Evelyn who listened without judgment and helped me untangle years of buried resentment. "You've been auditioning for their approval your whole life," she said during one session, her words cutting through me. "What if I told you the role doesn't exist?" That line stuck with me, because she was right. I'd spent years trying to earn something they were never going to give me, trying to be enough for people who only saw my value when they were in crisis. So I stopped performing. I stopped justifying. And I started building something for myself. By fall, things felt different. Cleaner. Simpler. My savings had grown again. I'd picked up a few freelance cybersecurity clients and was finally considering the business idea I'd shelved years ago. A consultancy for small businesses that couldn't afford full-time IT teams but desperately needed security guidance. I started drafting a plan, bought a domain, sketched out services. Nothing flashy. Just smart, slow growth. In November, I got a small, handwritten envelope in the mail. No return address, just my name. Inside was a wedding invitation. Brandon and Cassie. February 17th. All-inclusive resort in Cancun. Printed on thick ivory cardstock with a gold embossed border. And at the bottom, no gifts, just your presence would mean the world. I stared at it for a long time. Then I flipped it over. Nothing. No note. No personal message. Just an invitation. As if we'd all been on perfectly good terms. As if nothing had ever happened. 2 days later, my mom called. Not to ask how I was, not to apologize, but to ask if I was coming. "Brandon's really hoping you'll be there," she said, her voice dripping with careful sweetness. "He feels bad about how that conversation went. You know how he is. He's got a good heart. Just doesn't always think things through." I didn't say anything. "And if you were coming, we were hoping you could help with one small thing," she added, almost as an afterthought. "What thing?" I asked, my heart hammering in my chest. "Well, it's about the rehearsal dinner. The resort wants payment up front. Your dad's card got declined, and we're still waiting on a reimbursement from the caterer. We were just wondering if you'd be willing to cover it, and we'll pay you back once we get it sorted." There it was. The role, the fallback, the ATM. I could feel it, like a heavy jacket they were trying to slip back over my shoulders. But this time it didn't fit. Something had profoundly shifted in me. And as I listened to her talk, I realized this wasn't just a moment. It was a test. And how I answered would define everything that came next. But I didn't give her my answer then. I told her I'd think about it. And I did, for 3 full days. Because what I was about to do would take planning, patience, and just the right timing. Because they wanted me at the wedding. Oh, I'd be there, all right. Just not in the way they expected. 3 days. That's how long I sat with it. My mom's request, the invitation, the sheer audacity of it all. For 3 days, I didn't respond. I didn't call. I didn't even look at the RSVP card tucked in the back of that ivory envelope. I just thought about the years I spent quietly supporting them while Brandon coasted on charm and excuses. About the countless times I made space for them, for him, sacrificing weekends, money, and mental bandwidth just to keep things peaceful. About the way they toasted to his engagement with the same breath they used to beg me for help. And most of all, I thought about that moment in my kitchen when Brandon stood there asking me for $5,000 like it was a tip for good service. There was a time, not long ago, when I might have caved, but that version of me was gone. And the version of me that remained, he didn't want peace. He wanted clarity. So I started planning, not to destroy them, not to hurt them in a petty way, but to show them exactly what they built, brick by agonizing brick. The first thing I did was dig. Not dirt on Brandon. That would have been too easy, and honestly, I didn't need it. His track record spoke for itself. Instead, I focused on the wedding itself. Cassie had posted a full Pinterest board, public, of course, with color palettes, floral arrangements, and dream venues. I scrolled through it like a detective analyzing a crime scene. Every detail was there. Pink peonies, gold accents, a beachfront ceremony under a wooden arch. It was real, booked, confirmed. A destination wedding in Cancun, February 17th. About 70 guests. Ceremony at 4:30 p.m. sharp. I clicked through the resort site, the Sun and Sol Grand Riviera, and pulled up the group reservation link. Cassie had even posted the code. That was my opening. I booked a single night, not for February 17th, but for February 15th, 2 days before the wedding. Why? Because I wanted to observe, watch the setup, see who came early, gauge the mood. It gave me flexibility, and more importantly, it gave me proximity. Next, I set a calendar alert for every major deadline. Flight confirmations, RSVPs, vendor due dates. I wasn't guessing anymore. I was tracking. Then I called David, the same friend I'd reconnected with after cutting ties with Brandon. David worked in digital marketing, but more importantly, he was the most ruthlessly organized person I knew. I explained the situation, leaving out some of the raw emotional details, but giving him the bones. I need help making a point, I said. Something that's not illegal, not cruel, but unforgettable. He laughed. You want a psychological slap without leaving a bruise? Exactly. David was in. We met that weekend over coffee and white bars. Brainstormed, pitched angles, vetoed anything that felt too dramatic or out of character. This wasn't about creating a scene. It was about creating an echo, something that would sit in their minds far longer than any outburst ever could. What we landed on was simple. I'd go to the wedding, but not as a guest, and not as a ghost either. I'd be visible, just not in the way they expected. No suit, no gift, no RSVP, just presence. But for it to truly work, I needed a symbol, something quiet but piercing, something that would embed itself in their memories longer than any shouted word. So I started working on a letter, not a rant, not a confrontation, a letter addressed directly to Brandon, handwritten, folded, and sealed in an envelope, a mirror, basically, one that reflected every moment he'd overlooked, every favor he'd forgotten, every time he'd spoke about me like I was a vending machine with unlimited options. I wrote it and rewrote it, burned the first draft. The second, by the fifth version, it stopped sounding angry. It sounded precise. I'll share the full thing later, but here's a line I remember vividly. You've always asked what you get from me. Not once have you asked what it costs. In January, I got an email from my mom. Subject line, need your RSVP. The message was polite. Too polite, like it had been copy-pasted from some bridal website. I didn't respond, but I knew she took my silence as a maybe. A week later, she called. I let it go to voicemail. Hey, sweetheart, just checking in. Haven't heard back about the wedding. Brandon and Cassie are finalizing numbers. We'd really love to see you there. Also, your father wanted to talk to you about the rehearsal dinner thing. Just a quick favor. No pressure, but call us when you can. Quick favor. No pressure. The greatest hits. I archived the voicemail and kept building my plan. David and I made a detailed checklist. Researched the resort layout. Done. We found blueprints online from a wedding vendor's blog. Knew where the ceremony would be, where the dinner would be held, and most importantly, where the vendor entrance was. Book a one-night stay? Done. I used a different credit card, just in case. Scheduled delivery of the letter? This took the most thought. I wanted it to land in Brandon's hands on the morning of his wedding, when tensions would be high, when there'd be no time to talk or argue, just enough time to read it and feel it. David helped me coordinate with a local concierge service. I hired them to deliver a sealed envelope labeled from Aaron to the groom's suite at 10 a.m. on February 17th, just before haircuts and pre-wedding jitters. The woman running the service didn't even ask what was inside. Apparently, grooms get a lot of surprise letters. I wasn't the only brother with something to say. In the meantime, I kept living my life. The consultancy was gaining traction. I landed my second client in mid-January and was already getting referrals. The gym was still consistent. Therapy ongoing, but beneath it all, a slow anticipation was building. Not revenge, not really, more like justice. The kind that doesn't make headlines, the kind that just lands. A week before the wedding, Brandon texted me again. Yo, need to know if you are coming. Cassie's freaking out about numbers. Also, can you front the deposit for the DJ? They need it by Friday. No punctuation. No, please. No acknowledgement of the last time we spoke. I stared at the message. Then, without thinking, I typed one sentence. I'll be there. Sent. He replied in under a minute. Legend. Appreciate you, bro. I didn't say another word. Didn't ask about the DJ. Didn't confirm anything else. And I knew, deep down, that he thought that meant I'd cover it. He thought, I'll be there, meant the same thing it always had. I'll catch you, but not this time. This time it meant, you'll see me, and that was going to be enough. Because the wedding wasn't just a celebration. It was a stage. And for once, I didn't have to be the silent one in the wings. I just had to show up and let the truth speak for itself. February 15th. I landed in Cancun late in the afternoon. The sky was coral-colored, the ocean visible even from the airport shuttle. I kept to myself. Checked in with no fanfare. Wore sunglasses, a hoodie, a hat, incognito, but not hiding. The resort was massive, pools like sprawling lakes. Staff who greeted everyone like royalty. I walked the grounds slowly. Found the wedding setup already in progress. The arch was up. Flowers were arriving. Staff were rehearsing the dinner layout. I saw my parents walking near the pool, my dad in a polo shirt, my mom in oversized sunglasses. They didn't see me. I stayed back, watched, observed. They looked happy, unbothered, at peace. And weirdly, I didn't feel anger. I felt distance. Like I was watching a show I used to be in, but no longer belonged to. I turned, walked back to my room, and set my alarm for the next morning. February 16th would be quiet. But February 17th? That was showtime. I'll tell you exactly what happened that day. But first, just know this. Brandon opened that letter. He read every single word. And when he looked up from it, he didn't smile. He didn't laugh. He just stood there. Still, for once. And that stillness, that's when I knew the plan had worked. But trust me, that wasn't even the main event. Because what happened next? That was the twist no one saw coming. The morning of February 17th started warm and still. The sun filtered softly through gauzy resort curtains as I sat on the edge of the bed, flipping the envelope in my hand for the 100th time. It was simple, white, sealed neatly with Brandon written in dark blue ink across the front. I didn't feel nervous. I didn't feel angry. What I felt was something quieter, steadier, like this was just a page being turned in a story that had dragged on for far too long. At exactly 9:45 a.m., I slipped the envelope into the padded folder provided by the local concierge and handed it off to the hotel staff member. We'd arranged for a local man named Luis, polite, professional, and perfectly uninterested in whatever drama he might be delivering. It will be in his suite before 10, he assured me with a nod. I thanked him, slid him an extra tip, and returned to my room. There was nothing left to do. But wait, the letter was all I needed. It wasn't angry. I made sure of that. It wasn't some revenge manifesto or a sob story begging for understanding. It was a mirror, a surgical reflection of every choice Brandon had made, every line he crossed, every dollar he'd casually borrowed, like it came with no strings attached. I'll share an excerpt now, because this is what broke him. You've always seen me as a wallet, a backup plan, a silent brother in the background who says yes because it's easier than fighting. But every yes costs something. Time, sleep, dignity. Every yes built a version of you that never had to change. You stood on a beach and toasted your engagement with the money I gave you to save your home. And I said nothing. You asked me to fund your next venture while laughing about the last one. And I said nothing. But I'm not saying nothing anymore. You'll get married today. You'll smile for cameras and kiss under an arch built on money you never earned. And I'll be there, not to support you, but to witness what you've built. Because this isn't about revenge. This is about recognition. And you're going to remember, for the rest of your life, the moment your older brother stopped being the safety net. I waited. By 11 a.m., the resort buzzed with wedding prep. People rushed past my suite, dressed in pastel linen and radiating panic. I could hear laughter, clinking glasses, vendors barking instructions in 2 languages. Every detail was being obsessed over, except the one they couldn't control, Brandon. He wasn't smiling. I saw him from a distance once, around noon, pacing near the edge of the beach ceremony site, staring at the ocean like it might give him an answer. He wasn't talking to Cassie, wasn't laughing with the groomsmen, just pacing, staring. Luis had delivered the letter, confirmed it. Brandon had opened it right there in his suite, alone. I knew that because I'd paid Luis a little extra to wait in the hallway and let me know the moment Brandon finished reading. He didn't say anything. Luis had told me with a shrug, just sat there quiet, then folded it and put it in his pocket. That was all I needed. I didn't attend the ceremony. I wasn't interested in watching him pretend everything was fine. Instead, I took a walk to the resort's outer gardens, bought myself a drink from a bar that faced the water, and sat quietly in the shade as the ceremony unfolded 100 yards away. At 4:47 p.m., the music stopped. Cheers echoed across the lawn. Brandon and Cassie were married, but the fallout? That had only just begun. It started with the rehearsal dinner bill. Remember how my mom had asked if I could cover it up front? Well, she'd assumed, without asking again, that I would. So they booked it. Flowers, lighting, an expensive 3-course meal for 50 people on a private deck by the sea. And I didn't pay, which meant the resort charged it to my parents' room. And when they tried to check out the next day, they were met with a surprise bill, $5,278.41. Their card declined. Their second card also declined. Panic ensued. I found out about this later through Cassie's cousin, who I'd met briefly at the bar the night before. She thought I was hilarious, and ended up oversharing after a few drinks. They were freaking out this morning, she laughed, barely able to contain it. Your mom looked like she'd seen a ghost. Your dad was arguing with the manager, trying to say the charge was a mistake. She took another sip. Then Brandon just left, said he needed air, didn't even help. I didn't say much, just smiled, because the best revenge isn't loud. It's lonely, but the money wasn't even a real blow. That came later, after the wedding, after the photos and the fake Instagram captions and congratulatory DMs. It came in April. Cassie left Brandon. Turns out, when you build a marriage on delusion and entitlement, it crumbles fast. According to David, who'd stayed in touch with Cassie's cousin, things had started falling apart within weeks. Brandon had floated the idea of borrowing the rest of the wedding money to invest in yet another business opportunity. Cassie said no. He got defensive. She dug deeper, found out about other debts he hadn't disclosed. Loans from friends, credit card balances, a bounce check from the photographer. And then she found the letter. He kept it folded neatly in the bottom drawer of their nightstand. She read it twice, and that's when things snapped. I wasn't there for the breakup, obviously, but word travels. Cassie moved out, took the apartment furniture with her, and filed for an annulment within 6 weeks. Brandon called me after that. Voicemail. His voice cracked, rambling, tried to sound casual, but barely holding it together. Hey, I know things have been weird, but I could really use someone to talk to. Everything's just falling apart, man. I get it if you're mad, but I don't know. Call me. I never did. And my parents? Well, they tried to do damage control. Called once in May, then again in June. Left long messages full of regret and half apologies that never actually said sorry. Just versions of, we know how bad it got. You've always been so independent. We thought you didn't need us. Brandon's had a hard life, you know. We just tried to support him. I listened to each one, then deleted them, because forgiveness is a choice. But access? That's a privilege. And they'd lost it. Today, it's been 9 months since the wedding. I haven't spoken to Brandon since. My parents have finally stopped calling. My life? It's better than it's ever been. The consultancy is thriving. I signed my biggest client 2 months ago. Ironically, a chain of bridal boutiques that needed cybersecurity audits. Full circle, I guess. David and I are launching a side project this fall, a budgeting app for freelancers. It's nerdy, but it's ours. I bought a new couch, a really nice one, paid for in full, no payment plan. And every morning, I wake up with a sense of peace I never used to have, because I no longer live in the shadow of their expectations. I no longer build my worth around what I can give them. I reclaim my life, silently, intentionally, and they still don't understand how they lost me. That's the beauty of it. They thought revenge would be fire and fury. They thought I'd yell, scream, storm out, cut them off in some dramatic, public way. But no, I just stopped giving. And that was the loudest silence they'd ever heard.